All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a nice wintry but sunny San Diego. And I'm delighted to be joined by Terri Ross, who's just up the road in LA, equally sunny and fresh, I presume.
It is. Thanks for having me, John.
Of course, and Terry's the founder of Ross Consulting and is the go-to expert for medical aesthetic professionals who want to transform their struggling practices into thriving, scalable, and profitable businesses. You worked with hundreds of medical practices and Fortune 500 companies, and you've developed your own proprietary revenue optimization system. That's what we're going to talk about today. So you've helped practices like increase their revenue sometimes by 200+%. And what is and you work a lot with obviously aesthetic practices. What is the problem, the issue that most of them have, the ones that maybe are struggling and not like maximizing their potential?
Great question, John. And again, thank you so much for having me. You have an incredible background, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about a topic that I think is undervalued. I think people
Mhm.
think sales is really easy. And if you think about it in life, it's really what makes the world go round, whether you're buying a car, shoes, trying to get your kids into college, getting married, whatever that is. But there is a framework to why people buy something, which really comes down to, and I'm sure you would agree, an emotional response. It
Yeah.
comes down to feelings. And I feel, well, and I don't feel, I know for certain, I spent 16 years in Fortune 500. So I don't think people understand that the level of listening and your level of ability to ask good questions is what is right. Ultimately, getting those responses is what helps people buy something.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I think part of the problem is, and I don't know whether you agree with this, and so you're dealing with, aesthetic practitioners and all of that, is a lot of times people have this silly idea that I'm not in sales. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want, it's kind of icky, right? Isn't it? But yet at the end of the day, if you believe in your business and believe in what you're doing, all you're doing is is finding out what issues people have and then deciding if you can help them or not.
Right, right. Well, I always equate, since I am in the medical business, I'm like, you're
Mhm.
not selling anything, but you are educating.
Right.
If somebody has a certain feeling about themselves and you want to sell a facelift, well, then how badly do they want that? Like,
Yeah.
let them cover the problems. It's never really about the price. And so it's a fascinating space to be in. And you're absolutely right. I think people just can't embrace it. But when
Mhm.
they do, I'm sure you've seen it, business is like exponential growth because you're actually getting down to the value, not the money.
Yeah, and like you said, that all comes down to having good conversations, asking good questions, really trying to understand what's going on. And you would think that these are kind of skills that would come naturally to, you know, people in medical professions like this, because they have to diagnose, they have to understand. So in essence, they probably make really, really good salespeople.
When you put it that way, yes, because this is exactly what I say to our
Mhm.
industry. It's your obligation, right? If you are a doctor or any kind of
Mhm.
provider,
Yeah.
a dentist, it doesn't matter what, OBG, you are diagnosing the problem, which means there's probably a multitude of things that someone needs, right? Lab work,
Mhm.
X-rays, medicine, right? MRIs, whatever that surgery, whatever that is, but yet they don't look at it like that, and so it becomes transactional.
Yeah.
But you have a problem. I have the answer, and I'm just going to tell you what the answer is. We've not uncovered anything in between. And so
Mhm.
now we're just in and so when medical aesthetic practices, which is a cash-based business,
Yeah.
are trying to increase revenue and spending a lot of money to acquire a patient to come in the door, they're not maximizing that consultation.
Mhm. Yeah, and we used to always say actually in sales, like, it's funny, but we just always says is um, what's it? Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, right?
I love that. I'm gonna write that down. I love that.
Yeah. So in anything, whether it's medical or otherwise, I mean, if you're going to prescribe a solution before you've really diagnosed it, then you're not acting ethically. Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Or right, it's just the one widget that they think is going to fix the
Exactly, yeah. Or
problem.
you're just making a one-off
Right.
transactional sale.
Right.
So walk me through the core pillars of your revenue optimization system.
I mean, we look at and I really say that we are solving. We're
Mhm,
looking at financial literacy, we're looking at all of the KPIs and benchmarks, we're looking at the profitability, we're looking at their systems and tech stack, we're looking at their team, we're looking at leadership and culture, and then their growth plan. And so we are trying to identify, and this really would be applicable to any business.
mhm,
We would do a full on audit and then look at the nine, really those, 7 to 9 pillars, and identify where those gaps and opportunities are. And then under each one of them, obviously, is a multitude of things that we can correct.
mhm. And then one of the things is, how do they start to look at, okay, different people who come through the door, contact or whatever? How did they, if you like, pre-frame a patient before they come in?
Well, look, I think the qualifying, right?
Mhm.
Qualifying somebody on the phone is really important. But in my industry, and I think it would be different for others, perhaps, but that now at this point in time, it's such a competitive market, John. It's such a commodity. There's a
Yeah.
med spa or a plastic surgery or a wellness center, right? We're living
Mhm.
in a very hot commodity
Yeah.
on every corner.
Mhm.
And so now people are just becoming, it's sadly, it's becoming about price. Oh, what do you charge for Botox? Oh, what do you
Right.
charge? Then people are literally just giving the price over the phone. Click buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we really have to identify, well, who is the patient? What's the demographic? How old are they? Where do they live? Why are they calling your practice? And so a phrase that I often say, which will diffuse objections, is, well, what are you looking for, John, when you choose an aesthetic practice?
Mhm.
I'm gonna put it on you and let you answer. You could say to me, "I just wanna know the price, Terry." Well,
Yeah.
that's cluing to me, well, then you're a price shopper, and that's
Mhm.
probably not the client I want. So,
Right.
again, it goes back down to skills and the ability to ask
Mhm.
good questions that people don't know what to ask.
And part of that sometimes is, I mean, in practices like the ones you deal with, I mean, oftentimes, they'll be getting, if they're calling, maybe they'll be getting or calling in, they'll get to a front desk person or who answers the phone, and that person may not realize that they're in sales too. They're not just somebody to take notes or to make an appointment, but that they are
Yes.
the first, they are the tip of the spear in many ways.
I mean, you're speaking my language. Everybody,
Mhm.
right? Everybody within a medical practice that is cash based is selling something. And then
Right.
I'll do I started my own conference a couple of years ago to kind of close the gap on the business of aesthetics.
Yeah.
I'll ask people the question when you started off this podcast, when you hear the word sales, what do you think? And they always talk about sleazy words. They think
Mhm.
it's this very negative thing. But I'm like, God, think about life. Like we buy everything every day, you sell every day. But the ones that can't get their arms around it or want to embrace it, they're not going to be thriving businesses.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, 100%. You have to, and you probably do this, is that you have to get them to reframe things and say it's not, forget the word selling if you must, right? I,
mhm.
I often I had this experience when I ran a global sales consultancy when some companies, they were saying, "Oh, we like the training, but we don't call our salespeople." And I said, "Okay, what do you call them?" And they'd say, "Whatever." And I'd say, "That's great. We'll change it to that. But can I let you into a secret? Your customers and prospects know your salespeople. You can call yourself whatever you want."
Right. I love it. I love that. That's great. 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it, is the embracing of it, and get away from the sales aspect and just say your job is to help people, and is to help people get the right solution to whatever issue they have.
Yeah. Guide them to a decision based on an outcome they want.
Yeah.
Right? But how do we, right? They want it. You don't know how
Mhm.
bad they want it. Let's get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And what you're doing is interesting, because people would think in an industry like the one you focus on that it would be just like people calling up saying, "I want this done, I want that done," or whatever. But having the conversation, as you said, to find out why and what is it, and what's driving this decision.
Yeah. Well, I did another podcast this morning. I did a sales training this
Mhm.
morning, and that was a big topic of the conversation. they asked me a question and they
Mhm.
said, "Well, Terry, how do you get, right? If we get the patient in the door,
Yeah.
how do you get them to, I teach the concept of a treatment plan, right? I'm
Mhm.
not transactional.
Yeah,
How do
yeah.
you get them to buy all of the services?" And I said, "Well, did you ask them if they come in with fine lines and wrinkles
Mhm.
and you realize they have like pigmentation or issues, did you ask them why they're there? Like, why do the fine lines and wrinkles bother them?"
Yeah.
You have to get the patient to tell you, "Oh, I don't like how I look on Zoom," or "I'm always editing my photos," or
Mhm.
"I'm dating a younger guy." Whatever the reason is, the why is the
Mhm.
your guys are skipping the whole step.
Yeah.
And if we could just what you said, reframe and really kind of recognize we're not selling the boob job or the
Mhm.
Botox. We are
Right.
selling the outcome and how it makes someone feel.
And I think that's the thing is like understanding what the emotional outcome, if you like, is that they're looking for, right? I mean, obviously they're looking for something to be done, but
Yeah,
they're looking to feel in a particular way when it's finished. And
yes.
with that, and if you don't know what that is, then the chances of maybe they'll end up doing a procedure that they regret, or it's not the right thing, or something like that. And then, that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We're or we're allowing them, sadly,
Mhm.
to self-diagnose.
Right.
When we don't get to self-diagnose in any other medical area, but we
That's
do it here. They're like, "Well, they just came in and they wanted this thing." And I'm like, "Did you just give them the thing?" Well, then,
Mhm.
shame on you then. Shame on you because 'cause you're just doing your clients a disservice.
Yeah, and as you said at the beginning, I mean, this is a fantastic time to stand out if you like, because yeah, there's these facilities everywhere, and you even see like these little signs stuck on lampposts with like $50 Botox shot or whatever it is, all this kind of craziness. I don't know what I don't know. I just think you have to be pretty desperate to react to a sign on a post, but hey, people probably do.
I'll say I was driving to Palm Springs, right? Since when I live in Southern California, and it was like, breast augmentation, 4 th
Right.
like $4,000, and I'm like, "Who the
Mhm.
hell is gonna put on a billboard, right, to have surgery?" I don't know, it was just appalling, but I was like, "Is this
Yeah.
how people are making decisions?"
Right. And it does play into, I mean, given, we're in difficult economies and all thing like that, given, people, I mean, there are people out there who are very obviously concerned about money and obviously get taken in by these things. But what I was saying is like, it's a fantastic time to differentiate yourself by not being that.
Yes. Well, yeah, and someone asked me today, and I'm sure you'll agree. I said, "Pick a what kind of brands do you like?"
Hmm.
Right? Whether you're a Target, a Macy's, a Nordstrom, a Neiman's, Saks, whatever that is. Think of a
Right.
hotel brand, whatever. I'm like, just pick the lane and stick in the lane. There is
Yeah.
something for everyone, but just
Hmm.
know who that is because you can't discount and then expect, right, a Neiman Marcus patient to come in.
No.
And
Mm.
right, and vice versa. So then it goes back to then we can back into marketing and messaging and who's your avatar client. I think it's just the fundamentals of running a business and who we are, what you just said, your unique value proposition. People can stand out. People will pay
Mhm.
more, but
Yeah.
I don't think that they feel that they will.
Yeah, and I think the other important part that you just underlined there is the ideal, customer profile is like, as you said, is figuring that out and then staying in that lane. If you want to be, high end, if you want to appeal purely to women or whatever it is, then that's what you should do, price accordingly and all your marketing around that. I think you're right, is especially in competitive businesses that are, unfortunately becoming a bit commoditized because of the
Yeah.
amount of them. It's very easy to think of like, oh, I'm just going to grab every piece of business I can, but that doesn't. But when you try to put those together, it doesn't work for any of the audiences you bring in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree, and I think it's what is that an analogy? You throw spaghetti at the wall, you hope
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sticks, and you get a bunch of people, and they're like, "Oh my god, well, my leads suck, or my leads aren't that great." And I'm like, "Well, that's not the
yeah.
quality of the lead you wanted anyway."
Right, right, right. And I think that's so. I think that. And how often did you go through that process when you're talking with businesses of saying, okay, let's really, really narrow down who your ideal customer profile is, and then once you do that, stick to it.
Yeah. We are we're a healthcare consulting firm, and it's
Mhm,
we you and I have similar ones. So when we take on a private client, that's what we do. We audit the business. And
mhm.
that is one of the first things that comes out. That if I call a practice and do a secret shopping, I'm gonna call.
Right.
You listen to how they answer the phone. You listen to what they talk about, why Dr. Golden is better, and half the time they can't. So
Mm,
all of the time we work with clients on a private coaching basis is we're looking at that.
right. How many times have you come across where they've told you that their business is like this, right? But then when you secret shop them and you call them, you have to break the news that your business is not that's not the message you're delivering.
Well, I use a phrase and I'm like, busy doesn't mean being profitable.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I think many businesses are like, "Oh, we're busy, we are booked, we're 3 months booked out." And then when we start looking at the numbers, and I'm like, "But your profit margins are bad, right?
Mhm.
Your retention's low." I mean, then we start backing into KPIs. I would say 70% of the time, John, it's probably more so on
Right.
the Mhm.
Yeah, and when you work with people, I mean, because this is always a difficult one. It's when you have to is the transition to maybe you're now going to tighten up your business, you're going to tighten up your ICP. You're going to probably have to turn away business. And that's at the beginning as you transition to getting to the right people. And that's and maybe not even turn away business, but turn away or reduce your pipeline, which is something that scares the heck out of most people. I mean, these are tough things to do. How do you help them through that process?
I what I've found is it is really a mindset shift.
Hmm.
And it's the only way that I can help them understand that if
Right.
you have chosen to be an entrepreneur and own a business, you have an obligation to run the business and run it like a
Mm.
business, which
Yeah.
means and then it's deciding, right? Do you want to be that Chanel or Louboutins or whatever it
Mhm.
is? You're going to get that. You're going to attract that. And I say, first class is always full. Why is it always full? For a reason, whether I can afford it or not, but maybe I wanna
Right.
have a drink and I wanna live so I think that, there's more opportunity for businesses if they could just get out of their own way a little bit
Hmm.
and get clear or revisit, and I think now is right the economy is we don't know. I think businesses are suffering overall.
Yep.
And it's a good time to just reevaluate who that avatar person is and shift the philosophy of the business. And that is a big leap. If you have a
Yeah.
team, you've been doing something for the same way for 10 years and you're like, okay, now we're going to switch it all up. It's hard, but the ones that do, at least I can speak for our clients, have had exponential growth.
No, no, and absolutely. And one of the other things is, and I think this is where a lot of businesses like this, fall down just across the board, is just the follow up and the follow through, right? That I don't know how many times it still amazes me today is when you contact a business and you say, I want what you have, or I want you to call me back. Here's my number. And then you don't hear back. Or you hear back like 5 days later or whatever. And you're like, huh? I don't even remember. Who are you?
Well, you had this article about the right pipeline in the CRM, and I know that's a whole different topic we could
Yeah.
get into, and I'd love to revisit that. But you're 100% right. I mean, I'll tell clients to put call tracking systems on their phone so we can track,
Right.
in addition to the CRM. It's astounding. I think I don't know what it is, right? I just think that they're going to be waiting around. But I'm like, if I'm calling your practice, I'm calling 5, 10
Yeah.
other practices too. So it's
Mhm.
speed to lead.
Yeah, it is. And how often is it that you start off with the one and you think this looks fantastic, but you don't hear back, and before you know it, you just go with when the one that calls you back, you go, oh well, I got a call back. I'll probably go with this person.
I know. I think sales just is its own beast,
Hmm.
right? On its own, and the ones that right can succeed at it just are killing it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really important as well. And like we said, when there's a lot of these types of businesses around right now, is really differentiating yourself, but not in silly ways, like differentiating yourself by you serve this customer and this is the experience that they
Yeah,
have.
yeah. And I think you said a word that we haven't. It is people are paying these days for an experience,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure like you, I drive to Beverly Hills to get my hair done and it's very expensive and I'm there for 5 hours, but I love it. I love
Right,
money.
right.
I love the music. I love being there. I love how it feels, right? Right? We're paying for more than just, right, the blonde hair.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I totally want experiences. I have to say, my barber Emiliano down here is probably not quite as expensive, but but
Right.
I tell you, here's the thing. I look forward to going because it's a real old fashioned. We talk about everybody talks. It's a great.
Yeah,
It's a
get it.
haircut, but it's an hour of pure just chatting about nonsense.
But think about that, even for a man to say that,
Mhm.
right? You could probably go and get it done in 20 minutes, but
Yeah,
it's like you care about, right? And then caring about something greater than just
yeah.
the transaction in and out for, 50 bucks or 80 bucks, whatever the hell it is, right? Is a whole nother.
Yeah, and it's just that thing of like, and I know, I mean, it's probably the same where you go, but I mean, the barber I go to, he and his colleagues and stuff like they care about every bit of the experience, right? You know, they'll have their fridge stock full of beer if you want a beer.
I love
They'll all this kind of stuff that is unnecessary,
Yeah.
but it makes for the experience.
Well, and I love that we're using hair salons because think of
Mm.
barbers, hair
Yeah,
salons. That is a very commoditized industry too.
absolutely.
There's one on every, right? So when these businesses are trying to feel like, I want to be different, I want to grow, I wonder what, and they start to look at people like you and me or a CRM or
Yeah.
investing in sales training. Oh my God, it's expensive. But I'm like, you're wasting money in marketing because you can't even convert those you have. You have a bigger problem, but they think this is an expense. And I'm like, it is the highest return you'll
Mm.
ever get by investing in the right systems and the right training.
No, absolutely. I mean, the thing is today, I mean, you wouldn't hire accountants or bookkeepers who didn't have any qualifications, right? But you're happy enough to maybe hire people into positions that require some selling and go, "Bah, I don't need to train them. Sure, they'll figure it out."
Yes, yes, or have expectations of them, but they don't even know how to do it.
Exactly. And I think that actually, and I think that's even probably more pertinent because it's their bosses, it's the owner, whatever, setting these unrealistic expectations of you've no training, haven't in this, you've never sold in this before, but hey, go figure it out. And by the way, if you don't succeed, you're fired.
Right, right, exactly. It's like we're setting people up for right, to
Yeah.
fail, not recognizing that that's such a core fundamental.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would just advise anybody who's in a sales position, even if you were maybe put into one that you didn't like welcome being put into or whatever, is go and invest in yourself. Don't wait around for people to invest. You invest in yourself. There's tons of stuff online free or whatever, or you can do, which I would recommend, go and find a coach or a consultant like Terry. I have hired them in myself in the past, and I will tell you that the first coach I hired, it is probably repaid about 1,000 times over
Oh,
at least.
no, it's I love that you said it, and same with me. I had hired somebody years ago who sold her business to Bill Gates, and she is
Right.
the reason I have my sales training curriculum that I launched, and there's been many iterations of it. And you're right, it absolutely is. I think anybody should invest in themselves and not wait for their employer,
Yeah.
or if you are a business, really take a good hard look at your business now as we wrap up the end of the year and
Yeah.
figure out what you want your goals to be for next year and how are you going to achieve that?
Yeah. And maybe the money that you spent on somebody doing TikTok videos for you could have been better spent with for your business, could be better spent on training your salespeople.
Absolutely. Yes, I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, listen, thanks very much, Terry. All of Terry's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, John. Yes, and thank you for having me. If you guys are struggling with sales of any kind, I mean, obviously my background has been in medicine, but the framework of sales, the philosophy of sales, is applicable. I work a lot in real estate as well. So it's Terri Ross Consulting is my company. My Instagram is also Terri Ross Consulting. I have a lot on YouTube. I have a podcast as well. So that's where you can find me. Love to hear from you guys. I hope you found this valuable. And John, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, listen, thanks, Terry. Yeah, loads of great insights. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching and listening. And I will see you all again.